Hey, what's up, guys? Trent here from Tattoo Crafted. Today, I'm going to be showing you my process for how I paint tattoo flash, liquid acrylic, watercolor, whatever it is you want to call it. Basically, this is just a step by step of kind of how I approach these. I've been doing these for about 12 or 13 years now total, done countless amounts of flash sheets, large paintings, everything in between. So I just kind of wanted to show this. I've had a lot of people ask how I do it personally. So yeah, this is the video of how I approach and paint tattoo flash. So let's do it. And here we go, guys. So for this project and basically all of my tattoo flash or liquid acrylic style paintings, I use microns mostly, the Copic liners, Faber-Castells. Those are some of my favorite ones to use. Lately, I've been mostly on just the microns. I've been using 1.0s, 1.2s, 0.8s I use a lot as well. And if I want a really thick line, if I use these like the 1.0 and the 1.2 and I kind of press hard with them for a few paintings, eventually the tip on it starts to kind of open up a little bit, and it makes the line even thicker than the 1 or the 1.2, and then you can get some really nice consistent clean lines with it. You just got to kind of take your time and then stop pressing as hard with it after you kind of essentially damage it. Then if you take your time and you go nice and slow, then you can get some really thick clean lines with it. It just kind of all depends on what the object is that you're painting. Obviously, you don't want to use a super thick line if you're doing a flash sheet and your designs are like palm size, unless your designs are very simple. If you're doing something with a lot of detail, you would obviously want to switch to something more like a 0.8 and not press so hard and just kind of drag slow. There's a lot of folks that use brushes to outline their paintings with. They use nibs. You can pretty much do whatever you're comfortable with. This is just what's quickest and easiest for me. I have done paintings where I've outlined with nib. I have done paintings where I've done some of the work with brush. And actually in this, I ended up doing some lines with the brush as well, just because I already put some of the microns away and I started painting, and it was just spots that I noticed that I should have added lines when I had the markers out, but no biggie. I just take my time and drag it nice and slow. Doing a lot of the pinstriping and stuff like that's made me a lot more comfortable with outlining with the brush, because that's all you can do. There are no markers, so it takes it out of the equation and kind of forces you to learn how to take your time and adjust your hand speed, and when you're rotating it and stuff like that is all kind of important. So yeah. First and foremost, I want to talk about the brushes that I use. So I have multiple different sizes. I use rounds. That's what I'm comfortable with, especially for this kind of painting. Um, I have, twos, fours, six, eights, size wise. These are Dick Blick brand, just watercolor brushes. And these are by far my favorite that I've ever used. They just work best for me. They might not suit you. You might want to use a different brand or a different style, whatever. I'm just explaining what it is that I use. So these are the brushes that I use. So this is the paint that I use. I use mostly FW liquid acrylics. You can find these at Blick as well online or in store. Hobby Lobby, Michaels, they might carry some of these things too. I'm not really sure. I guess it kind of depends store to store. Sometimes one store will have FW, another Michaels on the other side of town might not have it, or another city, whatever. I also use Liquitex. I've been using these for about the last year and a half. I started getting into using these. I really like a lot of these colors from this company as well. I use some Bombay. This is Dr. Martin's India ink. This is brown. I really love this for skin tones. I have a couple Amsterdam acrylic colors that I use. I think there's a pink and like a greenish turquoise kind of color that I use. Those are the other two colors I have from them. Most of my paint comes from those three companies, though: FW, Liquitex, or the Bombay India ink from Dr. Martin's. Paper, I started off thinking like, oh, I should just buy whatever watercolor paper, and I would paint on it, and it was fine. You get what you pay for. So I switched to Arches paper a very long time ago. That's the only paper that I will use now. It absolutely is the best. I could paint on any watercolor paper you put in front of me, and I could do it okay enough to get by, obviously, at this point. But if you're going to do this, especially if you're a professional, if you're a tattooer, something like that, I know it sucks to spend the money on something more expensive, but it is true. And especially if you're a tattooer, you more than anybody should know the old you get what you pay for. If you want good quality, it is not cheap. You're going to have to pay for it. Arches is not cheap, but it will significantly improve your workflow. It will make your paintings look better. It's just all around a better product. It is what it is. As far as companies go that make good paper for this kind of tattoo art, whatever, I think there's no contest. Arches is absolutely the best. Having said that, let's get into this a little bit here. I'm going to show how I approach doing my spit shading technique. So I've already laid down a lot of the black in this already. Um, so I'm just going to kind of show you in a couple spots here how I approach it, what I'm doing, how I'm using the water. And instead of using like the saliva in my mouth or using like a water brush, I'm not a big fan of the water brushes. I've tried to use them many times throughout my career, and they just never caught on with me. There are some guys that I watch paint with them that do absolutely incredible paintings with them, and they obviously seem to love them, and that's great for them. I'm glad that people like it. Me personally, do not like them. Do not understand. It just doesn't work for me. So this is the way that I approach. So basically, it's all about control for how much paint you're putting on your brush, how much water you're putting on your brush, all that stuff. It's just about how well you can control what you have on your brushes. So to start off here, let's just do. I'm going to do a fade over here on this part. So I'm going to lay my paint on pretty thick, because the key to this, especially with using the water, and I guess any way that you would do it, if your paint is kind of dry on there and you're not laying it on thick, if you're wanting a nice big long blend that's going to take a lot, cover a large amount of the paper, you want the paint to be pretty wet when you lay it down. Then this is the part that's the hardest to learn how to do, and I just do it all by feeling. So I dip in my water and dab a couple times on my paper towel, and then I'll start pulling the shade. Now, if I feel like, okay, like right now it's not as wet as I would like, so I'm going to pull away really quickly, dip once, and dab one time, then start pulling back into it again. And I'll kind of work my way back a little bit to start pulling it out, and then just work back and forth motion. It's all just in the motion of just going back and forth, making sure you're covering every bit of the paper that you're wanting the blend to be in. I dip again with my water brush, and I'll wipe it off more dry, just so that way there's no paint sitting on it. And then that way when I go to dip again to do another blend, I know that my brush is already dried out kind of right now, so I know how many times to dab onto my paper towel. So We're going to do another one here. Go nice and slow and explain one more time. So I'm going to follow along with this. This part's going to be blue, but I want a little bit of like a black shade in there. I don't want it to be overly crazy this time, though. So the paint that I'm putting on there is not super thick. And then I'm going to hurry, dab once, and then just start to pull this out. I'm not going to go super far with it yet. I'm just getting it wet so that way when I dip back into the water, dab it off twice, and start pulling a little bit more. And just kind of see, okay, I can kind of feel and see how far I'm going to be able to pull this shading with how much water I have on my brush at this exact moment. So I need more. Dip one more time, dab it off twice. Because each time that you're doing that, you're cleaning off the extra paint that you had already been pulling out, spit shading wise. So you're just cleaning that off of your brush, so that way when you go to get back in what you've already blended, it's not super dark and saturated with the pigment from the paint. You're just pulling out more of the watered down black that you're pulling away from there. So that way you can get your blend nice and smooth and consistent. And all it is just the motion of just working it back and forth. You don't need to go like this and go 1,000 miles an hour. If you want it to not be smooth, then sure, you can do that. But the flow of this, to get it to be smooth, to look really nice, is all just in hand speed and your movement. If you're moving 1,000 miles an hour and your hand speed is super sporadic and stuff like that, then yeah, you're not going to get smooth blends. They're not going to look as clean as they could because you're going too fast. So if that's what's happening to you and your paintings are looking like that, slow your hands down, slow your speed down, make sure you're getting enough paint down on your surface, make sure you're getting enough water in your brush to pull, and make sure that all of those things are linking up, because all of those things are very important pieces in the wheel that you're pushing. So if you're not putting enough paint on there, then you're going to have problems. If you're putting too much water on there, you're going to have problems. If you're not working your hands slowly but quickly enough, you're going to have problems. There's just all these variables that go into it. So you got to make sure that you're paying attention to all of those. Here's the last one I'm going to do here. I'm actually just going to do this black up to here as like his undershirt. And then we'll start working some color in there, and I'll start explaining how I layer that on there next. And here we start with some of the color for this brown tone. I used Van Dyke Brown from Bombay, Dr. Martens. This was my first time actually using this color. I just picked it up. Mostly I just use their brown tone. The brown tone on its own I use for skin. It's a really, really great color for like flesh. It stands out really nice, looks really nice, spits shades into super nice tones. So I'm a super big fan of that, and I am a super big fan of this brown as well. It's just a slight bit darker than the regular brown, but it was just enough to kind of give me the definition I was looking for his clothing because he's yellow. So in the shadows, I did some black, and then I did into a brown, and then over top of that, I'm going to do a really bright yellow, and it'll make it look like it's got a lot of like shading dimension to it, and it makes it just look really cool. I started layering in some of the color here. I went ahead and did the yellow off camera. I forgot to turn the camera back on when I started painting. Got that layered in there. Started laying in some Payne's gray for the metal on the top of his shoulder pads. The Payne's gray that I use is from FW. Super great color, especially for like metal and stuff like that. The cool gray is a good color too, but I just feel like it just looks basically like spit shaded black, so you could kind of get the same effect just using the black by itself. The Payne's gray gives it a little bit more of like a bluish, more like cool tone, and I just really enjoy the way that it looks, so I use it a fair amount in my paintings. And here I start laying down some of that Dr. Martens Bombay Brown for the skin. This has been my favorite color to use for doing skin flesh tones. I've tried a bunch of different ones, but the way that this looks when you spit shade it just makes it look so nice. I have actual flesh tone from FW as well. I use that sometimes, or if I want to make kind of a pinkish flesh, I'll take that flesh tone and mix it with a little bit of pink. But there's just something about the way that this looks when you spit shaded that's just, in my opinion, it's just unbeatable for skin tone. And here I start working on the blue for Sub-Zero's suit. For the main tone of this, I used a Prussian blue. That's from FW. You'll notice most of the paints that I use are FW. I've just, over the years, have grown to really love the color choices that they make, and I'm just really comfortable with those. I have been slightly switching over to a few more Liquitex colors over the last year and a half or so. They make some really great colors as well. They're really consistently about the same as the FWs. They're not really too much different. Some of the companies make really opaque liquid acrylics, like Amsterdam and even Waverly actually as well. They make a super opaque paint. So if you're into really opaque liquid acrylics, those companies are definitely worth checking out. For me personally, I just really love the workflow that I have with these paints, and it's really hard for me to not want to use them. For the secondary color, I ended up using like a Rowney blue from FW. For the skin tone on his arm, to make it kind of look like it's kind of frozen, I ended up using this baby blue, sky blue from Liquitex. It's also a really great color, but it is super opaque, as well as the FW version is also, because they have a color that's pretty similar. It's about the same, I would say, almost identical, really. It's super opaque, so you got to be kind of patient with it, and definitely don't get over your lines too much, or you'll have to go in and fix those up. But yeah, it's a really great color, and I wanted to use it as like his arm was turning into ice, and then use the regular skin tone on like his face and his other arm and fist and stuff like that. So for the flames behind him, I ended up using the brightest yellow that I could find from Liquitex. I don't remember the names of these. A lot of these I just grab what colors I need. I don't really pay attention to the names, so I'm really sorry that I'm a lame-o and don't know every name of every color. But if you go to buy these paints and you look at them, you'll definitely see what I'm talking about when you see this one. It's like sunshine yellow. They have a couple other yellows too. They have one that's more like like a golden yellow. It's a little bit darker, and then they actually have a ochre color as well that's even a shade darker than that. Those are the only yellows from Liquitex liquid acrylics that I've seen. There may be more and I just don't know about it, but this was the tone that I chose to start with the flames because I knew that I was going to do some extra stuff with them. So I'm just laying on the base layer like I was talking about in another part. You can kind of just pick and choose how you want to approach different parts of a painting. I've kind of just pieced together a bunch of different things from people that I've seen do liquid acrylic over the years, and I just kind of came up with my own system, and I use stuff when I need it or when I want to use it, and I switch back and forth with technique. So with the flames, I knew that I was going to use a secondary color and do a little bit more detail in it, not just the yellow. The yellow I just wanted to be as my light base layer tone, and then I was going to build darker off of it. And sometimes I'll work in reverse and I'll work from dark to light. It just kind of depends on what I know the colors are going to be and how it's going to look. And a lot of that's just experience from doing it for so many years. So once you really get comfortable with painting with these, you'll just kind of start figuring out how things work for you the best way. And, you know, just run with that, because that's, if it's producing the results that you want and other people are recognizing it and saying like, that looks really great, and they're like, not just blowing smoke, up your butt, you'll get it figured out. It just takes time and reps and figuring out what's going to be best for each scenario of what you're doing. And here comes that secondary tone that I was talking about. So I knew that I was going to kind of go a little bit almost new schooly with how I was going to shade these flames. I don't really know why. I just decided it while I was doing it and just thought it would look cool. So I went with that. Sometimes you just got to see something in the moment, and if it makes sense to you and you think it's going to look cool, then do it. The worst case scenario is the painting is ruined and you have to throw it away and start all over again. Not the end of the world, not the most ideal thing, but it's better to get this stuff out on paper, especially if you're a tattooer, obviously earlier in your career. It's better to work these things out on the paper and make sure you're fully happy with the way that the design is going to look, instead of just trying to figure it out on skin. Start laying down some of the earth tone for the big piece of rock that they're standing on. I laid this down on there pretty thick. I knew it was going to be a little bit blotchy just because the color just doesn't want to cooperate with you sometimes, and this is one of those colors that I knew I would have to go over it multiple times to get it the way that I wanted it to look. So this was just my base layer, I knew that I was going to go in and do some stuff with airbrush anyways, and this was one of the parts that I definitely knew that I was going to go in and be able to get a lot better saturation with my airbrush. I know this is in a tutorial for painting, you know, tattoo flash using the liquid acrylics all the way through, and I'm kind of cheating with the airbrush, but I've incorporated the airbrush into some of my stuff since I've gotten better with it and practiced with it a lot more. I feel like there's just so many things that I can get to look better with it than just doing it all with brush. Now to fix the problem that I had with it being blotchy, if you just go over it 2-3 times, use a large brush, just keep going over it, heavy paint, and getting it layered on there perfectly, you can make it look great. I used to do it that way all the time, never had any problems. I just have the advantage of having my airbrush set up and being able to use it, and it can fix my problems quickly and easily. And I knew that I was going to go through and do some detail stuff with the airbrush anyways, so not a big deal. If you have an airbrush, use it to your advantage if you're trying to get something done and you want it to look good. If you want to sit and do it all with brush by hand, by all means do that too. I used to do it for many years, but now it's just too easy to use the airbrush sometimes to help fix the problems. So and here I am fixing that rock with the airbrush. So I just used a similar airbrush paint that I have that was kind of close to the color of the rock that I already used. Go through and just start cleaning it up and start cleaning up the edges a little bit. Like the blends were fine that I had, but I figured I was already in there with the airbrush and I could get really smooth, nice blends with that also. So why not just go ahead and do it? I already have the tools to do it. I can make it look cool doing it like that. So I just went ahead and ran with it. Started fixing up the clouds a little bit, just taking them up to the lines a little bit further with the airbrush. I could have done this with the brush if I wanted to as well, but I just decided I already had the airbrush and stuff out fixing the rock, so I might as well use it to my advantage, get this done a little bit quicker and more efficiently, and it turned out pretty cool and I was happy with it. I could have definitely done it with brushes. I've done it a million times with brushes. I'm only a year into even airbrushing, so for my entire career before this, I just did it all with brush. But sometimes it's just easier to use the better tool that you have at your disposal than to sit there and spend extra time. If you wanted it to be completely authentic, you obviously could do that. I have done that more times than I can count, but I like using the airbrush, and any excuse that I have to use it, I am using it nowadays. So adding a little bit of white in there also. A little bit of dry ice effect on his arm that's frozen there, doing a little bit of smoke in the foreground, adding a little bit of highlight to him, like his knees kind of frozen too. Freehand little starburst in the background there on the ice. And here I start cleaning up the flames. I got a little bit of overspray from the spraying the clouds, so I decided to go ahead and just go full send with the flames, add a little bit on his arm to match Sub-Zero's. And I ended up just going through and adding red to everything, kind of making it look almost like hot rod flames on a car, but it turned out really cool with the airbrush. I was pretty stoked on the way it turned out, and glad that I went that direction with it. Add a little bit of blood. Could have done this with a brush also, but like I said, I already had the red in the airbrush, so might as well use it. And there it is, guys. That's how I paint liquid acrylic tattoo flash. My process from start to finish, how I do everything, what I use. If you have any more questions or anything like that, feel free to please reach out to me. I would be happy to talk about it more in depth with you. Or if there's anything that like I kind of gloss over in this and you have more questions about, please let me know in the comments. Please share this. Let everybody know about this page. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I'm going to cook up something new and different for you for next time. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.